Okay, it says we're being live streamed. Everybody who's watching the recording, hang on for a minute while we do some housekeeping. Gotta let the live stream catch up, get the link, share it with the Telegram channel. Then we'll do some introductions, and then we'll go into the agenda. Okay, cool. Getting the link, sharing it on Telegram. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee. Today is February 8th, 2023. I am Chris Troutner. I've helped found the Permissionless Software Foundation with some of the gentlemen here. I also maintain fullstack.cache, which is cloud services for businesses that want to run web apps that need to talk to the blockchain. I help with the infrastructure around that. Let's go ahead and do a round of introductions. Aaron Sunman, why don't you kick us off?
Aaron Sudman, hello. I'm a big fan of permissionless software, the idea of being able to create without requiring permission from somebody. So this idea of a permissionless software foundation has been fantastic. And I also just love the software that's being built, and I'm using it right now to build ownrare.art and NFT marketplace.
Very nice. Go ahead, Stoyan.
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and I'm helping with some of the JavaScript libraries for the foundation.
Nice, thanks. Go ahead, Aaron Shoemaker.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Shoemaker, and I am helping out any way I can and building stuff using a lot of the PSF software. A lot of NFT stuff when I can. I'll get back to it eventually.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, man. Appreciate you making the effort to join. Go ahead, Sam, give a little intro.
Yeah, I'm Sam. I've been a supporter of the PSF, and currently I've been working on some Bitcoin script, like contract covenant stuff.
Nice, nice. All right, well, with that, let's go ahead and jump into the agenda. Where's the agenda? There we go. You guys can see my screen okay? Okay, cool. So as always, our agendas for these meetings are filed on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation group in a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee, and they're filed as issues. This is issue number 48. And the scope of these meetings cover these sort of PSF projects, the cache stack, which is the backend infrastructure that runs everything, which encompasses the blockchain and all the indexers. The is used for sort of censorship resistant information right now. They are fully functional, as well as the PSF governance documents, and then a project that I'm working on that will eventually come under the ownership and maintenance of the PSF is this new BCH CoinJoin, which is a JavaScript implementation of a CoinJoin wallet. I have an update on that. So as always, guys, if my internet fails on me, just let me know. Also, feel free to interrupt me at any time. Love the feedback. Love to stop and talk shop about any of these items. Okay, so some governance updates. Most of the guys here are on the Minting Council. The Minting Council NFTs have been distributed, and we are only waiting on Aaron Shoemaker to find the time to make a transaction in order to place his public key on the blockchain, and then all 5 members will have their public keys on the blockchain, and we can then initiate a multi-sig transaction.
I'll try to do it later today, Chris.
Thanks, man. Just just had to publicly shame you a little bit there. Can't leave that opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So yeah, I want to go into that a little deeper. So the Minting Council documentation which is at psfoundation.info. It's been updated, which makes the video no longer accurate, but in the video, I actually say, like, if there's a difference between the video and the written text, go with the written text. So I'm glad I put that in the video. Basically, what I had to do to reshuffle some of these things is trying to get down to the command. There is a update. So MC is Minting Council, and actually, let me just go into the PSF BCH wallet, which is our command line wallet the Minting Council uses. There's all these commands with a MC prefix for Minting Council. And the new commands, or the commands that got shuffled, is that there's this update transaction and there's an approval transaction. And all the nitty-gritty details are captured in this PS09 specification. But basically, I'm just proud. Yeah, all the details are in here. But basically, what I'll do as a member of the management is I'll do the bulk of the work by this MC P2WD update TX. So this is what prepares the price for the pay-to-write database rights to be updated. So it creates an object with all the information about the Minting Council NFTs and the multi-sig wallet, as well as the new price for pay-to-write database rights. So just as a reminder for everybody, what we're doing is we're bringing the Minting Council together once a quarter to update the price of writing to the pay-to-write database, and we're targeting a price of 1 cent, 1 penny US dollars. And so what we need to do, but that is paid in PSF tokens. So what we need to do is calculate the price in PSF tokens of 1 penny in US dollars. And so that's a number that changes with market conditions. So that's why we need to come together once a quarter to update it. It's drifted up. It's actually like closer to 2 cents right now to write to the pay-to-write database. So I'm looking forward to this price update because I'm doing a lot of writes, particularly with the local trade list, because it runs on all that. So basically this command, this update, it creates an update transaction, puts all that data as a JSON object up on IPFS. And then what this approval command does, this is the actual multi-signature command. All it's doing is it's creating it's generating a transaction from the multi-sig wallet, and the multi-sig wallet encompasses everyone who is in possession of a Minting Council NFT. So there's 5 of us, so it's a 3 of 5. And all it does is it approves the update transaction. So it just generates a transaction with an operator with the word approval, and then the transaction hash or ID of the update transaction. So this is sort of it's basically what I talk about in that specification is that multi-sig wallets are really complex. So trying to do complex things with a complex wallet is like, complex squared. And so rather than try and deal with all that complexity, we're taking all the complex stuff and putting it in the update transaction, which is a very simple transaction. And so all the Minting Council, and thus the multi-sig wallet, needs to do is just approve that transaction. So that's a very simple transaction. And then every instance of the pay-to-write database, when it boots up, it'll look for this approval transaction. That'll point it to the update transaction. It'll download that update, the data in the update transaction, and then the data in it can be verified. It sort of walks it back to make sure that, like, okay, this data points to the Minting Council. The Minting Council put this thing together and they approve it. So it's sort of self-referential. And so the pay-to-write database caches that information. This is the part that I still need to write, but I think I've got it figured out in my head. So basically the pay-to-write database, it verifies this information on startup for the first time. And then on subsequent startups, it just looks for if there's a new approval transaction. If there isn't, it finds the same old approval transaction. It has the data cached, so it doesn't need to go through all that again. But in this way, all the instances of the PaidWright database can stay synced. And sorry guys, I don't know where that's coming from. And yeah, so that's what I've been working on in terms of that and the new commands. So things haven't changed too much, and I'm excited for us to go through the motions of this very first transaction, because there's been some bumps already, and there's probably going to be more bumps, but we'll all work it out together.
Chris, I have a small, like, I know, note on these commands.
Yeah.
For the minting cancel commands, which started with MS, we have like a read transaction and sign transaction, but how to see all of the transactions which you need to sign, I think it will be like nice to have a list transaction, because now in order to see this, you need to use the message check, because the transaction will come like encrypted message. So it can be just maybe alias like MS list TX. It will show you the current active proposals. So because the read command, it's required the transaction ID, but you don't know it in the when you just want to see what is now available. So,
yeah, I lost you for a minute there, Stoyan. Can you repeat what you said about 10 seconds ago?
Okay.
Sorry.
So my point is that the read TX command, it's required transaction ID, this minus T parameter, but you don't know it. So it's good to have a list TX command, which will show you the current active proposals, which you can sign.
Right.
And
yeah. Well, so there is
in the moment, you need to do this with message check, but it was not very obvious for me. I just like, okay, how can I get the list? So maybe just alias or something.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We could create yeah, I know it is a little confusing because that's not an MC prefix command. So yeah, maybe we do need to have an alias command for that. But yeah, that's the idea, is use the message check command, and that brings up a list of all the encrypted messages that people have sent you.
But it will be good to have just a subset of this, which represent just meeting console,
right.
how to see, transaction that you need to sign, because they're important. In fact, you can miss them inside your other messages.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Stoyan. That's valuable feedback. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm hoping that once we kind of go through the motions with this first one, that's exactly the kind of bump I want to iron out as we go. So that's really good feedback, because it is confusing. I agree. It's confusing to be like, well, you got to use this one command that's not actually in that MC list.
Yeah. So yeah, just a small note. I tried today commands, so this was my cutscene.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for kicking the tires on that. Oh, let's see. Looks like Aaron dropped out. It's coming back in.
I'm just trying to come in on my computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's basically what's been going on the governance front. I'm pretty excited about it. Like, this is cutting edge technology. Like, I've never heard of anybody doing this in any of the Bitcoin blockchains. And I'm really excited. I mean, it's on the one hand, it almost feels a little melodramatic's not the right word. But because we're really just doing a very simple transaction with an op return. But the fact that we can actually create an update to a distributed system using a distributed wallet so that there's no single point of failure is, I think, a really big step towards DAO tooling. One of the things I just don't like about the EVM DAO stuff is just no one really understands how it works. Like, everything's broken down into like a nice user interface, and you click this button, and like they understand what's supposed to happen when you click the button, but they don't really understand how it works. So that's why it's important for me to capture this information in a specification so that anybody can kind of go back, look at the code, look at the specification and be like, oh, okay, like, and there's not, you know, code scattered everywhere. It's like 1 or 2 files. And then you can get a pretty good sense of how it works. I mean, that how does what I just said jive with your experience, Stoyan? Like, it sounds like you might have looked at the code and played with the commands a little bit.
In fact, in the beginning, in this EVM like world, there was a lot of variation, but because, like you mentioned, it's pretty difficult. Now everybody just gave up and they're just using this Gnosis stuff. So, you know, you just go to this site, you create multi-sig wallet and start using it. Nobody don't want already to deal with all the complexity. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Everyone is using Gnosis. I don't know of any other sort of, there used to be like a half a dozen different ways to do it. And now just like everyone just uses Gnosis.
Yeah, it's big pain. So yeah, when there's something, it's in fact the general engineering rule. If somebody is working, you don't touch it. So when you have this Gnosis working, nobody don't want to touch anything else and don't want to change it.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the things like, if once we get this multi-sig like approval, this like update and approval like series of transactions working, we can apply that in a general way to a lot of different problems. So I'm excited to see what we do after this. I mean, particularly I want to get us to the point where we can use the multi-sig wallet to bring new PSF tokens into existence. That's ultimately where I want us to get. But lots of other things. Like, I love this idea of updating a distributed system with a multi-sig wallet. That's kind of a cool thing to me.
From the code is law perspective, there is that interesting idea of every smart contract has all this, I mean, the risk. We've seen what happened with the DAO. We've seen that, so that things just coalesce into what Open Zeppelin did or what Truffles, you know, and so I think that's kind of a scary world. At least with what you're doing, it's simplified. It's not trusting, like everyone's using one thing. You're building a new system that everyone can actually download, read the code, and can understand much simpler than what's out there with EVM, because most of that, it's really tough to know if there's actually any flaws in it because it's really complex stuff.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Aaron, because that touches on the other topic I wanted to bring up, is that we're really like not like, we have not a decentralized autonomous organization. We have like a decentralized manual organization. And I kind of like it that way. And one of the things I learned by studying YearnDAO is that they have this sort of this really pretty org chart, and what they've learned is like some things need to be gated and some things do not, and you should have like small teams that focus on like those important critical things like the treasury and budgeting and like things that like you just can't open it up to everybody. It's not appropriate to do it that way. And so that's also why I'm kind of excited about this way of doing things, is that we can actually have like a minting council and the governance NFT, and we can spin off other councils for whatever comes down the road and have these like focused teams that are, 3 to 5 people or maybe bigger, that have a collective power, but no one individual has any power in and of themselves. So I'm kind of, it's heady stuff. My gears are turning on what we could do in the future with this tech.
There's an interesting side of this. Remember when Shapeshift actually went from a corporation to a DAO? I was on that first call and Eric Voorhees was talking about it. And I spoke up in that one, just saying, I think these are like watershed moments. And I've only talked to Eric Voorhees 2 times in my life, one in New York City and one on this call. But it was interesting. It's like, this is the pathway for corporations going forward, that there is this idea of a DAO or a DMO, but I don't know if that's a thing yet, but it is right now for us.
Yeah.
That there's this idea that corporations have just been how it's worked in the past, but going forward, we'll have much more options and many more possibilities. And I think it's important to have something like this built on UTXO chain rather than only using the one, the Gnosis sort of thing. I mean, I feel like this is a big step forward. So I'm glad to be a part of it because this is an exciting time.
Nice. Yeah, great to hear you echo that. That's how I feel. Okay, so moving on from governance stuff, couple tech updates. So yeah, I shared that the PSF BCH wallet has had those minting council updates for update and approval transactions. Looks like the only other thing I got on the list is this local cryptos blind escrow. So I'll kind of introduce this, Sam, and then I very much want to get your thoughts on this. And I'll give it from my perspective, and then I'd like to hear from your perspective, Sam. So when I was working at Bitcoin.com from 2018 to 2020, they launched local.bitcoin.com, and that ran off of a lot of the backend infrastructure that I was building as part of the developers team. And what's really, so this escrow script has existed on other blockchains, but it came out on Bitcoin Cash when we had the opcheck data sig, which is a new opcode, and that's one of the things, or I guess personally I think it was a red herring at the time. But the BSV BCH fork was kind of over the opportune. It really wasn't. It was like they needed to pick something to have a fight about, and they decided to pick opcheck datasig. But that's not really what the fight was about. If you dig into it, they just wanted to fork off, and they wanted to take as much of the network as that's my opinion, anyways. But anyways, after that all happened and the upgrade happened, and we had opcheck datasig, local cryptos, which at the time was, I think, one of the most popular non-KYC crypto trading applications. They came up with this, which leverages the opcheck datasig. So unlike crypto escrow scripts on, say, BTC, it's called a double blind escrow. So the arbiter, the arbitrator, they're not even aware that the trade is happening unless they get called in to resolve a dispute. That's why it's double blind, in that there is no need for an input from an arbitrator unless there is a dispute. And when they do get involved, their control is very limited. In this particular case, they can either, and if I get this wrong, Sam, I want you to correct me. But they can only send the money either to the buyer or the seller. They can't divvy it up. They can't, take it for themselves. They have much less input to the transaction than you would in a typical like 2 of 3 multi-sig. And so Sam's been doing some fantastic work on this stuff. I've just been trying to understand the work that he's been doing using libauth and some of these libauth templates. But if you this article is linked in the agenda, and it walks through the Bitcoin script that does the escrow. There's two scripts here. There's the escrow script, and then there's the fee script. So the idea behind the fee script is that and also the terms buyer and seller get swapped depending on the context of the situation. So within the context of this article, the seller funds the escrow. So they're putting the Bitcoin Cash into the escrow, and then presumably the buyer's doing something on their side. And then when the seller's happy, they release the escrow to the buyer. And so because Local Cryptos was doing this as a money-making venture, there was a second input where the seller would fund a fee contract. And then if the sale fell apart or whatever, the seller would get the fee back. But if the trade was successful, then the Local Cryptos, or the arbiter in this example, would get that fee. And that took me a minute to realize that there's actually 2 scripts here. So that's and then there's all the typical crazy Bitcoin stuff of like locking scripts and unlocking scripts. And honestly, I've been really hesitant to go down this road because I consider myself an application developer, and I just I don't really want to get into the weeds when it comes to like full nodes and scripts. I kind of draw the line with with like, I just want to build applications like web apps and stuff that leverage blockchains. Plus also it's ridiculously confusing to me. So I appreciate Sam's effort so much to like go down this road, because I've never seen anybody go down it and then come back and like explain it to anybody. So he's like, oh, I know it now. And like, well, that's great, but that doesn't help anybody but you. So Sam shared a video and some code examples, and I created this code repository that just runs through every possible situation. So there's several JavaScript, like standalone JavaScript. I'll call them an app here. It's just a file, but there's one for generating the address and funding the escrow. And then there's these 4 different outcomes where the buyer returns the fund to the seller releases the funds to the buyer, the arbiter gets involved and releases the funds to the buyer, or they release the funds to the seller. So those are like the 4 different outputs of the escrow script, like the 4 possible combinations of how things could happen. And then with the fee, there's 3. One where the seller cancels the trade and gets the funds back, or the arbiter receives the fee because the trade was successful, or this sort of corner case where the arbiter returns the fee to the seller. So I just tried to capture all those. And what's really interesting about some of these scripts is that, which was brand new to me, is that they're using the liboff library. So this was the first chance I got to play with the liboff library. It's very low level, and really interesting library. There's a lot to be said about that. But then it's using these templates, which is ide.bitoff.com. And let me see if I can pull up what these they're written in JSON, or JSON, and they describe the contract. They describe the script. So we're working with script without actually like really working with script. It's this level of abstraction. And like I've played a little bit with cache script, and I found that pretty intimidating. This, I still don't fully understand how it's all working, but it is working. That's the thing that's important to me. And but this is how you sort of describe the entities in the contract. So there's an arbiter and a seller, and you call out like, okay, I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it arbiter's key, or actually it's here, like this variable called arbiter key. That's what I'm going to use in the actual JavaScript. So it abstracts like the actual low level script calls like op1, op2, op check data sig, op push, and abstracts them into this sort of JSON blueprint, I guess, or template. And so these are all the different, what are these? These are all the different scripts here. And so they've got a combination of comments and actual op return. Yeah, so there's the public key. Yeah, and they make a short schnorr signature. And yeah, then there's like op3. And so the actual op codes are in this script, and they're kind of mixed in with the commenting. And this is why ide.bitoff.com is handy, because it takes this JSON and then breaks it into a graphical user interface that it's a lot easier to read. But yeah, Sam, do you want to talk to any of this? Because I am actually, I'm a little bit ashamed at how limited my understanding is, but not really, just because it works and that's all I really need to know.
I'm still learning it too. I mean, I just discovered like how the templating system sort of works. That's like the part that took me the longest to figure out, because the you have these names, and then you have to kind of match where the variables is where they're gonna, we want to get the you have your JavaScript code, and then you have to like match the variables, and then you have entities, and so it's like it is a new language sort of. I mean, the Bitoff IDE causes BTL Bitoff templating language sort of. So but
and then how does this like you played with maybe I'm wrong about this, but my understanding is like you played with several escrow scripts, or at least one other one prior
Yeah,
to this one.
I was used to, well, I discovered the one variation of the escrow was the example from the cash script library, or I got, yeah, and there was the cash script escrow example is like way different. The only covenant that escrow had was, okay, you lock the three participants, the three public keys into a script, and the covenant for that script was that the arbiter can only send to um all the funds in, like every satoshi in that script. So you created your address from your three or address keys, and the only outputs are either the seller or buyer, and and the covenant says all the satoshis in this script have to go to either one. In this, in the local cryptos, it's like the seller could spend the they could, it's a lot more flexible, but in a way your app has to coordinate like so many like different variables. So if you have to think like, if the way they do it, I think is when you create an account, they already create all these signatures for you for the because part of this the contract is that you have to sign this message of what you have to use that data check sig to tell the contract which script you're trying to spend from, or like which covenant you're gonna release from. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
when
we
you
were talking about that a little bit offline. Is like one thing that differs with the script that I created is that I assume that I know all the private keys, and in a real world situation, that's not going to be possible. And it makes me think about like, oh man, how did local.bitcoin.com do it? Because they must have gotten like your signature
well,
like prior to everything.
part of one of their on their article for the Bitcoin version, I think they describe that when you create a new account, they automatic you so you, they give you they you get a private key, of course, but they also create a like a ton of signatures for that. So what when you're signing this, like you're just signing some message that says like, so the message is like a hexadecimal or just like 01, and
Right. Yeah, you're
that,
just signing a message. And so they know your public address, they have the signed message. Yeah, so they
yeah,
don't need anything they don't have your private key, and they don't need anything from you after that,
yeah.
basically.
So I guess the app, once they have you give them a signature that says this signature can sign this message, like the one or two or three. Uh, the I'm assuming the app just coordinates like, oh, he has like, this user wants to do this. We have our keys. They have this signature, and now we can spend the script. And that's where I'm at, where I'm trying to figure out, oh, so how do they, you know, now I have to,
Yeah.
now I have to think of how like the whole app is going to work with different users.
Yeah, so we've got like a proof of concept, but there's still some work to do to actually put
Like
this into a real world use.
yeah, like a real implementation. Like, yeah, yeah. So it's gonna take a little more like thinking of how to coordinate what, like at the user level, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so I'll give you guys a little update on the local trade list app I've been working on, but this is my personal interest in this. Is the I what the problem I'm trying to solve with local trade list is the ability to lower friction between neighbors trading with neighbors, like people literally geographically close to you how do we make it easier and low friction for you to trade with your neighbors? Like, oh, whether it's baked goods or, somebody's got a bunch of extra potatoes in their garden, or someone's willing to chop some firewood or clean your house, like whatever. But how do we make it so that you can find those people with services to offer and lower the friction? So I'm interested in this escrow in that it solves this really critical chicken and egg problem of trust to initiate a trade. Is like somebody's got to move first. Somebody's got to put some money. So like someone's got to prove that they have the money and that you'll get the money if you do the thing. And so the escrow solves that problem, because once the money's in the escrow, all the parties know that the money's real and it does exist, and the person will get paid if they perform the service. And so now they have that confidence and that trust required to actually execute the trade and perform the service. And then if there's a dispute, there's a neutral third party to appeal to, and there's an incentive mechanism for that neutral third party to profit from offering that service. So I'm thinking it would complement this idea of local trade lists really well. So that's my personal interest in
Yeah,
this.
I was
And then,
thinking
there's a bunch of business applications.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I've been thinking of how you could make this into like a pick your arbiter sort of service, like, or I guess anybody can take up the app and, pick an arbiter, or anybody who wants to provide the arbiter service, they can just, get a template and host it somewhere or implement it in their own way. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. If we can abstract this and make it sort of general.
I'm actually interested in looking at this for some of the stuff we're doing. I just actually had a call with a guy in Ghana yesterday, and they are interested in our scheduling app for the music industry over there. And it would be great to utilize something like escrow and Bitcoin Cash for payments for to coordinate through that sort of thing. So I get once I get my head out of the rabbit hole of designing the user interface for this, I'm going to be diving into your stuff, Sam.
Yeah, if you have any
really
questions, you can ask any questions.
I will.
Yeah, really good work, Sam. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I was thinking like, oh, I can start writing this in, and then it wasn't until just before this meeting you pointed out like, you don't actually have everybody's private key. Oh yeah, no, I don't. Like that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a non-custodial wallet.
Yeah, if you look at the entities type, I think there's you have 4 types. You have HD key, regular key, and then you have wallet data. So that's the one that you use wallet data or address data, and then you have to change the JSON.
There's I'm gonna try and bring that up just because I'd love to take a look at it with you real quick while we're all here, and we got I think, no, not that one. I'm gonna scroll up to your. That's not it. There, I think that's the template. But yeah, I just might as well show this while we're having our meeting. That way you guys can see. So this is ide.bidoff.com, and it's loading this escrow template into it. And this is all Sam's work. Sam took the local crypto article and he stripped out like the information and the script, and he populated this template with this information. So just amazing work. So here's the escrow script with the 4 different outputs, and then the fee with the 3 different outputs, or I guess output scenarios, I should say. And then there are these entities. And so what we were just talking about is over here, you can select, HD key, address data, and wallet data. So address data, is this what you're talking about, Sam? This is the like basically a script hash of their address?
Yeah. Um.
I'll have to look
Basic.
into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I haven't played with these
Well,
other two key types.
you can make it script hash or public key or any sort of like byte data. I'll show you what I did. Right. If you want to look at the JSON I have, so it might be a little clearer.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can find it. Uh, uh, yeah, maybe I can share the screen.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love that.
Let me check this.
Should be able to.
Okay.
And Aaron Sunman, this escrow script might be really handy for OwnRare, in terms of the buying and selling of NFTs. Because I don't think any of the token information is necessarily important for the trade. Just this idea, this chicken and egg problem of like a buyer puts up the money and then a seller can send them the token and have confidence that they're going to get the money after they send the token.
Right, and then it doesn't require custodial of their money, right? That's a big
Exactly.
change from the capability with this kind of idea. That's a great point.
Yeah.
You guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the output template for with the up. You see here we have the wallet data instead of the.
Oh.
So instead of the you would put here key, private key, I guess.
Right.
And this is the script just without. I took all the comments out. So it's just anyway. I think it's here. You have
Actual code for that wallet data look like.
this is the old one where you have the arbiter as a private keys to get your output. Actually, this is for this is for
Oh, okay.
this is for the signature. But where is it? Sorry. You know what? I think it's here. Oh, here it is. So this is the old way, not the old. I mean, I guess the one where you need the private keys. And
Yeah.
let me just comment this out. So
Okay, public key hash.
if you want just the pub, yeah, you just change it to a bytecode here for the wallet data, and then you change
Nice.
your yeah your. So I had a way of you turn your addresses into or your public keys, you hash them 160, and then you just put that in there. But really, you can make the data any like you can configure it any way you want. But so I wasn't sure if I should require the template to accept like public keys or the public key hash. But you can make it any data you want. Like the original one we had was where you give it the private keys, and then I figured, well, you're not going to have access to private keys, so you can always get the public key hash from the address. So I made it
Yeah,
to
it's
yeah.
much easier to just ask them to give that to you, or I think in a worst case scenario, you could just look up the public key on the blockchain if they've made a transaction. Like you could do that, you could build that into the software where you just automatically, when they create a wallet, you have it send like some dust back to itself just to put the public key on the blockchain, and then you don't even need to ask a user for it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you guys a quick demo or update on local trade lists, and then we can open it up to anything we want to talk about at that point. So yeah, I've been playing with just the user interface, the basic. So just to refresh the idea here, local trade lists, I already talked about how the intent of it is to lower the friction of trading with one another. So the idea here is that all the data is on the blockchain, so nothing can be censored. And in terms of moderation, it's a group decision. So for each of these pins are group tokens, SLP group tokens. So that means that these stores, they can generate NFTs. So that makes no opinion on what those NFTs are, how they're used. And so the raw data is coming from the blockchain itself. And so if someone makes, so this was one I just created, Refresca. So there's a picture of the store. So this is the mutable data that's part of that token. And there's actually, I think this one has more. Yeah, this Milwaukee store has a couple products that I previously used for NFTs. So you can put like price and a description, and then there's a more info link with this will probably go to like a profile page that I have yet to make right now. That could just be anything, take them to like the store's website. And then the idea is that if, say, this is explicit content, has sex or drugs or guns or something that you're opposed to, you can click this not safe for work. And that actually puts a piece of data on the blockchain that flags this as not safe for work. And if enough people do that, the software will pick up on it and not show this, or at least it'll hide it from the safe for work version and then show it on the not safe for work version. And then there's also a garbage, which is the exact same idea, except it has a higher threshold. So if it's just some like garbage pin, that way enough people who collectively say that it's garbage, like the algorithm will pick up on that. So as sort of the person who runs this particular instance of the site, I don't have any control over the raw data, and my only control is to set these thresholds for when this sort of filtering kicks in. Other than that, the power is in the actual users using this application, and then they can leave comments, and then the blocks it. So some of the improvements I've made is once you've created a store, which I have with this one, it was this, not this one, the one down. I'm starting to take pictures of stores down here in Mexico. This Refrescarera. This line changes from create a store to edit store data. And so you bring it in here. And so this is, I have this picture actually listed as a product. I'm kind of messing with things right now, but I can click this and delete the picture, and I get this confirmation. So these are the UI improvements I've made. It's just like to have a confirmation screen. And then if I hit continue, it'll be like a waiting modal that'll go through, like, kind of tell me what's going on, because it's sort of a long running process. It takes about a minute to add or delete, to write all this data to the pay-to-write database, push it up to IPFS, and then actually it writes it to the, and then write all the data to the blockchain. But I can add additional products here in this form, and then I can click in here and actually get right to the raw JSON that's being written to the mutable data. So if I just want to manually edit it this way. But I've been playing with these updates. I've like updated, not this store, but that Milwaukee store. I've updated it probably 2 or 3 dozen times, and it's still really snappy. Like every time I make an update, the system picks up on those changes really fast. And so I'm pretty happy with the performance, but it's the sophistication is the simplicity here, is that like it's just supposed to be a map for browsing and reporting, and then adding products, and like I'm trying to keep the UI like as simple as possible. So some of the next things I'm going to do is this area on the right will be populated based on, it'll take all the pins like in the current zoom setting of the map, and then list them by the last time they were updated, the last time the mutable data was updated. So the most recent ones will go to the top. And then as you zoom in, more pins will pop in. So you zoom into a geographic area that you're personally interested in, and then more pins will populate. And the ones that populate are going to be based on the last time they were updated. So you'll get the most recent ones first. So that's inevitably someone's going to try and game this algorithm. So I'm trying to think ahead. And if you want to game it, then you need to like frequently update the information about your store, which I think is a valuable way to rate it. So I'm having fun playing with this. It's just it's a toy at this point. And I'm really happy with how the mutable data stuff is handling up. You know, this is still new stuff. The number of applications that actually are leveraging this mutable data specification are fairly limited. So we're still in that phase of working out the bugs. And so I'm really happy with how frequently I can update the mutable data and not have it impact the infrastructure.
Well, I think there's some interesting things here. One of them is that if you're going to game it, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to pay, right? So it's not free to game it. Like that's one of the big things with, in fact, that's why Adam Back actually started working on this stuff, was because he wanted to put some cost to sending emails, right? So this is really cool because you're building something, means that if you want to game it, it's going to cost you some money to game it and it takes some time. So you're building in a lot of these things just by making it simple. It, you know, like you said, it makes it elegant.
Thanks. Yeah, you got it.
How's the IPFS pinning working? Are you still using what was it, Web3.storage?
No, not really. I've pretty much switched exclusively to using the pay-to-write database pinning service. It's a two-step. So at each write, like we said, we're trying to target a penny. So it's a two-step process where you take your JSON data or your image file, and you write it to the pay-to-write database, and then, or actually, well, it's different with an image file. If it's JSON, you write the JSON to the pay-to-write database, and then you do a second transaction that then takes that and pins it to the pinning cluster. And then if in the case of an image, you need to put that somewhere. So that's where Web3.storage comes in really handy, is you can upload an image to there and get the IPFS CID that you need. And then do a write to the pay-to-write database, asking the pinning cluster to pin that, and then that'll get pinned across the cluster. We still have the 1 megabyte limit, but that's a pretty easy thing to change once there's enough, demand for it. I'm just really happy. It's like guardrails at this point. There's no like solid reason to keep it at 1 megabyte. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how that's all working. That's why I'm excited to get the ball rolling on this minting council thing. And because I really think that like that's the thing that our DAO can be centered around. It'll be the cash flow that sort of pays for everything else. It'll be like the stewardship of that code and that infrastructure is like a sort of a righteous thing that our DAO can be focused on, like in terms of a mission.
If you try to raise the limit, I'm going to fork and create PSF core.
All right.
Yeah, it's got to be 1 megabyte or less, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Call you 2 meg or 1 meg Aaron. Or call me 1 meg Trout.
I'm a big blocker, so I want it. I want PSF DB. I want it bigger.
We'll implement SegWit into it.
Aaron Vision.
Yeah, Aaron's vision, right?
Yeah. PSF Aaron's vision. Yeah.
Well done, Shoemaker. That was funny.
I had to say it, the 1 megabyte block. Don't see any reason why we can't raise it. No way.
I'm gonna start writing orders to it anytime now.
Yeah, there aren't there like there's
Yeah,
4
please
megabyte blocks on BTC now. Isn't there like 4 megabyte blocks on the chain now? From what I heard.
God, that's been fun to follow, all the drama
been
around
fun.
that. Yeah. Well, I might be getting this wrong, but yeah, there was a 4 megabyte block, and I heard mixed things that it might have been one single transaction that was 4 megabytes, or it might have been, not that way. But yeah, some of these ordinals are getting pretty big. And the thing is, they don't have to pay for it. Like it's not so much that they're putting data on the chain. Like that's one thing, but to add insult to injury, they don't even have to pay for the data because it's like it's called the SegWit discount.
Right.
So yeah, something's going to have to happen there. And the thing is that Lightning is built on this tech, so they can't just turn it off because that would kill Lightning. So they're
you guys
really kind of stuck.
Doom. There's an ordinal where you can play Doom.
Yeah.
In your browser off the Bitcoin blockchain. I'll find that link. I'll send that one. That's
Doom is only a few megabytes, right? The game, isn't it?
Right.
Oh wow.
Hey, you just need me to send a transaction from that wallet, right, Chris?
Yeah. Any transaction and
To yourself?
like, oh,
It's done.
well, cool. Well, this is a great time to do a little demo. Let's let's verify that Aaron's telling the truth.
I'll show you my Linux computer over here. I'm gonna read out the transaction really, really slowly.
I'll tell you what it is here.
0, 9.
So yeah, so this is the MC collect keys command. So anybody can run this. And so it's
There it is.
the group token ID is hard coded into this command. And so it's just looking for all the NFTs that were generated from this group token. So there's been 5 of them. And so, yeah, so that was a quick look up to the PSF SLP indexer to get the NFT IDs. And now what it's doing is it's going to the blockchain, looking for the address that's holding each NFT, and then looking up the public key for that address. And then at the end here, it'll show us which addresses it was able to find public keys for and which ones it wasn't. And so last time I ran this, it was 4 out of.
Oh, he froze.
That's cool as heck. Well, it's really cool to see this.
Oh, need to place some like some music or
NFTs, now the
something.
adders are there.
Yeah. My internet's not quite as stable as I hoped it would be, but yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, the keys not found array is empty. So Aaron said we verified that Aaron is telling the truth. So yeah, so now
Yeah,
we've got
Quit transaction shaming me.
yeah, exactly. I rescind all the public shaming. But yeah, so now
Stricken
we've
from the
got
record.
an array of the NFT and then the address and the public key, or the NFT, the address holding it, and the public key associated with that address. So from here, I can generate that update transaction and then send out the approval transaction to all 5 NFT holders. Now with this public key, I can create an encrypted message and I can create a multi-signature wallet. And then I can send out the approval transaction as an encrypted message. And then just, and then once I do that, once I get 3 of the 5 to respond, then I can broadcast the transaction from the multi-sig wallet.
Nice.
Ta-da! So yeah, thank you, Aaron, and both of you, Aarons, and everybody else on the Minting Council. All right, guys, well, probably a good point to wrap it up. Is there any other burning things anybody wants to bring up before we do?
No, I need to check out Sam's thing, and since right now I'm with the scheduling app, I'm using kind of Web 2 stuff, but I could see I've always thought that using blockchain and something like the pay to write database would be great, because one of the biggest problems I have is calendar APIs and seeing what people's availability is. And if that availability is on the blockchain or referenced on the blockchain, it's a lot easier to find that availability. I've been doing a deep dive into that sort of thing, and scheduling is a huge problem, and it's all what we call it, what or who, then when. So people are always looking at, if you take an application like Calendly, it's always, well, I'm going to go to Chris Troutner and then I'm going to see when he's available, instead of like, oh, I need somebody to code this who's available tomorrow. And but so as we get this built, I will be looking into, hey, can we incorporate the pay to write database and possibly have a more clear picture of pulling in availability for people. So
yeah, one more use case of a global permissionless database.
Yeah,
that's great. That's actually that's a great use case.
I have a
Okay, guys. Well, go ahead.
I have a question for the indexer. I'm not sure. Is it like Aaron's hardware problem? We can blame him again, but maybe it can be the Chris like code problem. Like from time to time, this indexer just stop and restart itself, and just starting from some like past point, and I need to stop it. Like how to see recreate it from the latest zip file and then start it again. So is this like file system problem or code problem or whatever?
It's a code problem. I'll own that one. The thing is like everything, because it's a blockchain, everything's deterministic. Like there shouldn't be there's no room for ambiguity. And so when the indexer gets confused, it doesn't know. So what it tries to do is restore one of those zip files and roll back to one of those zip files. And if that fails, it doesn't know what else to do other than shut itself down. And then as through part of that failed backup restoration process, the database is empty. So the next time it comes up, it just starts indexing from Genesis or SLP token Genesis. And so, yeah, I'm still like, you know how they say it takes like 90% of the time to get the last 10%. That's where we're at with that indexer is it's like and for the most part, it works really good, except for like that last 2%. We're trying to iron out the kinks, and so it's slowly getting better. This problem was much worse in the past, and yeah, I'll log onto the computer and take a look at it. But like I've been running the indexer for my clients, and it's been just solid. Especially the last updates I've made in the last couple of months. Have really made that backup issue less of an issue. It gets confused less. It's more successful at restoring the backups. So it's been pretty good. But yeah, like right now I'm hacking on it for the simple store protocol. So I'm running into these issues where it kind of gets confused and then it panics and starts indexing from Genesis again. So I mean, I could just have it not run. That might be better than indexing from Genesis. It's sort of like when you get into these worst case scenarios, like what's the best worst case scenario you want to find yourself in? So I don't know, because my thinking is, well, if it goes back to SLP Genesis and nobody checks on it for like 2 weeks, it'll magically fix itself because it'll re-index. But it's still a pretty shitty, like, sort of place to be. But
Is there a way to do like daily snapshots?
Well, that's essentially what it's trying to do. Is every time, every 1,000 blocks, it stops and takes a backup, and so 1,000 blocks is roughly a week. And so the idea is, and so by default, these are all settings that you can configure, but by default, it maintains 5 weekly backups. And so if for some reason it tries to restore the first one and that doesn't work, it goes to the next one and the next one and the next one. But yeah, so I think the real solution to this problem is to get better at those restoring those backups. And like I've said, they've gotten pretty good. It's gotten pretty reliable. And so when it does happen, when it does fail to restore a backup, I'm always interested to see if we can get the actual like root cause, like the logs. But that's hard because it's just like one little blip in a massive wall of logs. So it's hard to get it at that point and find the root cause at that point. Yeah, but yeah, good question there, Stoyan.
Computers.
But yeah, I'm gonna log into Aaron's server here probably today or tomorrow and try and mess with it. I brought a third computer online, so I've got 3 cache stack servers running, and I'd love to get Aaron's. That'd give us 4 fully functional ones on the network.
I think you have a permission to both of the servers, and both of them are running full stacks.
Nice.
So
nice. And then I've also got 2 that are running the eCache cache stack.
So then
my goal is to get 2 more on. I got to work on that yet. Still, I got 2 sitting right here. I just doing it.
We could have one of them running in an eCache stack. That's totally cool. So,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been using it, and I don't think anybody else is really heavily using it. I keep encouraging people, like everybody's like, I keep getting people coming and being like, why is full stack.cash charge so much? And I'm like, well, because I have bills, but you can use this other one and that's free. Like, just go use the Web3 cash stack. But I don't know, like, not many people are. Is what it is.
what could you do?
Yeah, I've done everything I can do. You
Yeah.
can lead a horse to water, but you can't make
Just
it drink.
make some money.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up. Really appreciate you guys making the time. This is good stuff, especially Sam. Thanks for making the time. This is great to be able to review that escrow stuff with you. Again, like awesome work. This is going to be so valuable for us to, I just think the applications for this escrow script are endless, and there hasn't been any other use of Bitcoin script that I've seen that has made me like want to go like learn about script. And this is the first one, and it's also like I've seen a couple people go down this road and been like, oh, I should jump on their coattails and like go along for the ride and learn more about this. And so I guess third time's a charm. So I jumped on your coattails there, Sam. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to end it here. Cheers.